Hello everyone. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is, without a doubt, a unique phenomenon in the world of show business. His career is not just a sequence of roles, but a story of constant reinvention, spectacular rises, painful falls, and a new, even more ambitious comeback. He began as a professional wrestler who earned recognition from fans all over the world, and then he accomplished the nearly impossible, transforming himself into the highest-paid actor in Hollywood and a true pop culture icon. And now, after a series of commercial failures and what seemed like hitting rock bottom in Hollywood, Dwayne Johnson is once again trying to surpass himself, but this time not as the biggest action hero, but as a serious dramatic actor who, surprisingly, might even compete for the most prestigious awards. And he's willing to do anything for that, even undergo the most unbelievable transformations, which have already sparked rumors about The Rock suffering from a serious illness. In short, Dwayne Johnson has gone from the bottom to the top, back to the bottom, and up again. And today, his story is presented to your attention. This is going to be interesting. So, Dwayne Johnson's path to cinema wasn't obvious from the start. Like many athletes, he tried his hand in Hollywood, but unlike others, he didn't become a one-role actor or a background extra. He quickly surpassed all expectations. His career began in the late 90s and early 2000s with small roles in films like The Mummy Returns and The Scorpion King. The Rock used his incredible charisma, athletic physique, and of course his ability to work with an audience, a skill he perfected in the WWE ring. For a long time, Dwayne was known exclusively by his nickname, The Rock, and it seemed that this persona would always remain his main trademark. However, the actor gradually expanded beyond that image, and by the 2010s Dwayne Johnson had become a true megastar, capable of carrying films, and entire franchises, on his own. He became the embodiment of the American dream, a simple guy from a family of wrestlers who made it to the very top thanks to his talent and perseverance. His films, although not always rich in depth, guaranteed the audience 2 hours of pure, carefree entertainment. It was the era of popcorn cinema in its purest form. And yet, Johnson's overwhelming triumph came when he started appearing in major projects such as the Fast and Furious franchise, where his role as Agent Hobbs took the saga to a new level, or Jumanji, where he showcased his comedic talent. In 2016 to 2017, Dwayne Johnson was recognized as the highest-paid actor in the world, and his films, aimed at a wide audience, consistently brought in massive box office earnings. It seemed that his success was cloudless and his brand unshakable. He became a symbol of courage, strength, discipline, and incredible work ethic. And The Rock's Instagram account, filled with motivational posts about training and a healthy lifestyle, became a real temple for, without exaggeration, hundreds of millions of fans around the world. By 2020 to 2021, Dwayne Johnson was at the peak of commercial success, surpassing many long-standing Hollywood veterans, much to the envy of the classic Hollywood elite, so to speak. And just when it seemed that Johnson had fully conquered the top, as often happens, fortune refused to let him rest on his laurels and began turning away from him. After a series of triumphant years, a turning point appeared in Dwayne's career. For many people, this project felt like an unsuccessful attempt to replace the legendary Jack Sparrow, whom Johnny Depp had portrayed so brilliantly. And although Dwayne Johnson tried to bring his own charisma into the role, he failed to create a character as unique and memorable as Depp's. The film couldn't meet the high expectations and only reinforced critics' concerns that Johnson had become stuck in the same type of role. But the real blow came with Black Adam in 2022. This was a project Dwayne Johnson promoted with particular passion, promising that it would change the entire hierarchy of power within the DC universe. The Rock was supposed to become one of the studio's main producers, and his film was meant to launch a new era of superhero cinema, where he would finally appear not just as a hero, but as an anti-hero delivering his own brand of justice. However, despite all the hype, the effort, and a massive marketing campaign, Black Adam failed to meet either commercial or creative expectations. It couldn't recoup its budget, and critics called the film dull, repetitive, and just another Dwayne Johnson movie. This failure marked an important turning point, revealing that The Rock's magic was no longer working as flawlessly as it had just a few years earlier. Critics and audiences began to say that Dwayne had become too fixated on his own persona. He stopped taking risks or playing real characters, he was simply playing himself. His films became formulaic and predictable, and his public image began to shift in a negative direction. Johnson, once seen as a positive and open guy, started to be associated with someone obsessed with narcissistic ideas, using movies as a platform to promote his brand. He began to look less like an actor and more like a businessman constantly advertising his clothing line, energy drinks, or tequila. His image started losing its authenticity and began to be perceived as part of a massive commercial machine rather than that of a talented performer. Projects like Netflix's Red Notice and others only underscored the fact that Johnson's star had suddenly taken a sharp dive toward the horizon. Of course, this actor was still one of the most recognizable figures in Hollywood and in the media space in general, but the negative background around him was beginning to weigh more and more heavily on Dwayne. Studios clearly stopped seeing him as a guaranteed box office success. Moreover, what had once been Johnson's strength, his habit of starring mostly in light, popcorn-style movies aimed at a wide audience, had now turned into his weakness, even, one could say, his curse. More and more articles began appearing in the press claiming that Johnson had burned out and had already shown everything he was capable of. That there was nothing more to expect from him. That he should just keep making his million-selling not-so-high-quality alcohol and stop trying to act, let alone pretend to be a superstar. And yet, while many were ready to write Dwayne Johnson off, he suddenly did something few expected. He accepted a challenge that could change his entire career and, in a sense, relaunch it from scratch. That challenge is the new film The Smashing Machine, which has not yet been widely released, in which Dwayne plays real-life MMA fighter Mark Kerr. This role required not only a serious emotional transformation but a physical one as well. For example, he lost a significant amount of weight for it. His appearance has become completely new and unexpected for the audience. The thing is, The Rock dropped, roughly speaking, at least 24 kilos, maybe even more. And all of this happened in just a few months, which, of course, came as a real shock to many people. People began searching for explanations for such drastic changes, and not everyone believed it was done solely for the role. Some even started drawing quite unpleasant parallels to the sudden change in appearance of the late Chadwick Boseman. Adding fuel to the fire was the fact that The Rock himself recently admitted that he has been dealing with very serious health problems over the past few years, including issues with his intestines, which he still doesn't know how to overcome. Again, the tragic similarity to Chadwick is hard to ignore. After all, Boseman passed away from colon cancer. As a result, the press, forums, and social media groups began actively discussing these alarming changes in Johnson's appearance. Although it still seems to me that all of this was done intentionally and specifically for the role. On screen, he also abandoned his signature image of a mountain of muscle and unbreakable strength, appearing instead as a much more fragile, even one might say broken, man. The plot of his new film focuses not on Kerr's victories in the ring, but on his personal drama, his struggle with opioid addiction, and his complicated relationships with loved ones. The world premiere of the film, held at the 82nd Venice Film Festival, became a true sensation. The screening ended with a staggering 15-minute ovation that moved Dwayne to tears. This wasn't just a success, it was an acknowledgement of his dramatic talent, something the actor had been waiting for a long time. This moment became a turning point. The audience's applause showed that Johnson can be not only a blockbuster star but, surprisingly, a serious actor. After the premiere, critics even began saying that Dwayne Johnson may very well receive an Oscar nomination for Best Actor, comparing his trajectory to the comeback of Brendan Fraser in The Whale, which also revived his career after triumphing in Venice. Dwayne Johnson himself, of course, isn't hiding his emotions. And now The Rock appears in a rather unusual, even somewhat touching public role, openly saying that this transformation was a huge shock and an enormous risk for him, and that he is deeply moved that it all worked out. So, Dwayne Johnson is once again at the center of attention, but this time not because of record-breaking box office numbers or follower counts, but because of his acting skills, strangely enough. For some, this may sound unexpected, but he, just like his character Mark Kerr, has made a comeback of his own. And this is not just a move into a different genre, it is, most likely, a major shift, an attempt to break free from the image that once made him a superstar but eventually began to hold him back. Johnson has now stepped away from purely commercial blockbusters and moved toward more meaningful, mature cinema, something confirmed both by his new film and by his own words. You can hardly even call him The Rock anymore. Although, on the other hand, it's probably too early to sing praises. It's worth waiting to see what he does next and how this new chapter of his career unfolds. But it's starting in a very intriguing way, so we'll keep watching the situation and keep you updated. And now, write in the comments what you think about all of this. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and, of course, subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.